Hello, and welcome to the Green Leasing module of this Sustainable Building Training series. In the other videos in this series, you have learned about sustainability in new building construction. However, existing buildings also have an important role to play when considering sustainability. In this video, you can expect to learn about the importance of considering sustainability in leased spaces and the process for including sustainability in lease documents.
The U.S. Energy Information Administration estimates that the total leased U.S. office market comprises 6.4 billion square feet, while according to the World Green Building Council, buildings account for almost 40% of global carbon emissions. In the U.S., commercial buildings account for 20% of energy consumption, with leased spaces representing 50% of consumption. So the environmental impacts of office and building spaces are substantial. But too often, the financial incentives to make these spaces more efficient and less impactful are not aligned. That is where a green lease may be a useful tool for you to explore.
Before talking about a green lease, it's worth thinking about typical leases. There are two types of leases in common use. There's gross leases and net leases. In a gross lease, the landlord pays for all the costs of the utilities used by the tenants. Thus, while the landlord has an incentive to install more efficient systems to reduce utility bills, the tenant has no incentive to conserve use of utilities or act in a more sustainable manner. The incentives for more sustainable actions are not aligned. In a net lease, the tenant pays for all the costs of the utilities used. Now, the tenant has every incentive to reduce costs by conserving use of utilities like heat, electricity, and water, but the landlord has little incentive to invest in capital system upgrades that are more efficient. Again, the incentives for sustainable actions don't align. Green leasing, sometimes called high performance or energy aligned leasing, is an innovation to bring together the interests of both the landlords and the tenants to save money and act more sustainably. In a typical green lease, landlords can amortize and pass along costs of efficiency capital upgrades to tenants to recoup their investment. And tenants can demand minimum efficiency standards for utilities as part of the lease and receive credit for acting in ways that reduce their energy and water usage. Submetering and regular data reporting can make sure all sides are upholding their obligations and can identify problems and opportunities for efficiencies to be addressed. In the end, long-term savings are shared by both parties.
Beyond saving money and reducing environmental impacts, green leases can also be ways of making more collaborative lease setups, as green leases encourage regular dialogue between landlords and tenants and are usually explicitly set up with obligations and commitments spelled out from both sides as to how to make spaces more sustainable. A green lease typically requires one or more of these key elements. Tenants agree to collect and share utility data with landlords to track whole energy and water performance of the building. The lease outlines how all parties will incorporate efficiency into design and operations. The lease determines financial incentives for both parties, for landlords to invest in capital improvements and for tenants to engage in efficient behaviors. Both parties identify points of contact who will participate in ongoing sharing of information. They require tenants to design any unique fit-outs of their spaces to the Energy Star for Tenant Spaces standards.
What does this look like in practice? Consider these examples of language from green leases by the tower companies of their Millennium Building in Washington, D.C., where 95% of tenants have a green lease. Tenant shall endeavor to participate in other water-saving initiatives and adopt water-saving best practices. Examples include running the dishwasher when it is completely full and reporting faucet and bathroom leaks. Landlord requires that at least one principal participant of the tenant's project team shall be a LEED accredited professional, LEED AP. The landlord participates in an energy and water benchmarking program with the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, called Energy Star Portfolio Manager. This program helps to improve the energy efficiency of the building, lower operating costs for the tenant, and achieve Energy Star certification. As you can see, the terms of a green lease can start while a space is still being created or renovated for a particular tenant and extends into the life of the space's operation. This is a key insight of green leases. While the construction of a building has a major impact on its environmental impact, its ongoing operation also has significant impacts as well. Green leases, unlike traditional leases, seek to address these impacts.
And addressing these impacts can have a great effect. According to a 2015 study by the Institute for Market Transformation, green leasing can save the U.S. office market $3.3 billion annually and reduce utility bills up to 22% in each building. A 2004 Lawrence Berkeley National Lab study showed that retro-commissioning a commercial building to be more energy efficient can save 11 cents to 72 cents per square foot. But unless landlords have incentives to share in those savings, typically those investments are not made. In total, when executed, green leases have the potential to provide the leased U.S. office market alone $3.3 billion in annual cost savings. The impacts also extend to the desirability of buildings as spaces to work, which can benefit both landlords and tenants. One study found that green building certifications lead to a rental premium of 6% and sales premium of 7.6% across both commercial and residential properties. Another study found that healthy certified buildings pull in effective rents that are 4.4% to 7.7% more per square foot than non-certified and non-registered peer buildings. In short, engaging in green practices in buildings financially benefits landlords and is desired by more tenants. Indeed, according to JLL research, 79% of corporate tenants say carbon emissions reduction will be part of their corporate strategy by 2025, and 42% of corporate tenants believe their employees will increasingly demand green and healthy spaces.
The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has taken up the charge of green leasing in considering its own future building management strategies. Pursuant to Section 2402D of the Administrative Code of 1929, the Department of General Services Bureau of Real Estate, which is responsible for the leasing of office space for the Commonwealth, is preparing to implement an environmentally sustainable policy for Commonwealth leased space. Lessors will be required to conduct energy audits of their spaces and work in good faith with the BRE, the Green Gov Council, and their tenants to cooperate on reducing energy impacts of leased space operations. Among the goals are for lessors and tenants to track all energy utility bills associated with the lease in Energy Star Portfolio Manager or equivalent. Use Energy Star Portfolio Manager to establish Energy Use Intensity, or EUI, Energy Star score, annual utility costs, and reduction goals for the space associated with this lease. Include Energy Star qualified products or the latest energy savings technology as equipment is due for replacement. Consider incorporating electric vehicle supply equipment options as a pay-for-service to the visiting public. In this way, the Commonwealth is starting to transform its approach to building leasing to bring it in line with the trends towards green leasing.
If you want to get started with green leasing, there are many resources available to help you get started. Check out the list of resources at the end of this video for more sample language that you can incorporate into your green lease. Industry groups like Institute for Market Transformation and the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, along with government agencies like the U.S. Department of Energy, the Energy Star Program, and the Pennsylvania Department of General Services Bureau of Real Estate, all have resources to help you develop green leases. To conclude, let's review what we covered in this video. Traditional leases do not align the financial interest of landlords and tenants in a way that encourages landlords to invest in efficient utility infrastructure or tenants to engage in best conservation practices to reduce their operational use of utilities. Green leases are a way to remedy this problem by aligning the interest of both parties towards more efficient spaces, with the cost and benefits of efficiency shared by both parties. Additionally, green leases encourage more ongoing collaborative relationships between landlords and tenants. Green leases typically require terms to be spelled out explicitly for both parties and usually require ongoing sub-metering and data sharing to monitor energy and water usage. Adopting green leases, which is an ongoing policy of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, can add up to large financial savings and a major reduction in energy and water use and greenhouse gas emissions. Remember, creating green, more sustainable buildings requires thinking about the entire life cycle of the building, not just the resources used during its construction, but also throughout its entire use and operation. Green leases are a valuable tool to help reduce the operating impacts of a building in a win-win-win for landlords, tenants, and the planet.